Sure, we're actually showing.
You can talk.
Anahata Graceland here with Royal Frenchel and Tail Wagging Love, bringing to you a show that really discusses dogs and humans from a perspective a little broader than most. Not just about getting your dog, gifts, chews, and the best dog bed in the world, but really talking about it in terms of the type of relationship that is so valuable today to so many of us. I just have been recovering the last 2 weeks from a knee replacement, and I have to tell you, having my Royal Frenchels with me the whole time was absolutely remarkable. I even made a video at like 3:30 in the morning because I was so stunned at how touched I was that it was working for me uh, to be up in the night with my dogs, and how completely well served I felt. Like I felt like I didn't need the people that had gotten ready to take care of me because my dogs were there. And that was a pretty neat thing to experience. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole idea of relationship and dogs today, because a lot of people don't realize how things have changed over a long span of time. Dogs have actually been in our lives for over 30,000 years. 15, 30,000 years ago, dogs were on the periphery of our campsites. They were exchanging little tiny bites of food for identifying where food might be. We were Dogs were participating with us just on the very periphery of our lives, and it was really all about tools of survival for both humans and the dogs. So we matched up along those lines. They needed the work, we needed the food. They needed the food, and we needed the worker. We needed the laborer to do the work. And as time went on, you move from from 15,000 years ago to, let's say, the 1800s, the middle 1800s, and you have the introduction during that period of really the 1600s it began, but they weren't formalized. It was happening in spots all around the world, in different places, where people were igniting relationships with dogs that actually did work for them beyond just hunting and that sort of thing. And basically what it did was they started like cadaver dogs. Like when there was a big accident of some kind or a disaster of some kind, dogs could sniff them out, and people noticed that they were sniffing out the people that were caught in the wreckage, etc. And so dogs started to be used as actual survival as hi, Chester. Okay, as actual survival dogs. You know what, why don't you put him away, because this is going to be too much with little Al with us. And so they started to formalize these relationships with the dogs, where they started to actually participate in developing trainings with them. And so I the training started to get developed. The cadaver dogs started. You had dogs that were, identifying. We had nobility moving in, right? And nobility started breeding dogs for specific types of attributes. And of course, what was nobility doing but riding horses in to catch fox and doing a bunch of things that had to do with hunting and that sort of thing. And so they started to breed the dogs for those things. The second thing they bred dogs for were protection. And excuse me, could you do me a favor and just move away from there, because it's really distracting for my brain difference. Yeah, thank you. So what happened was, you have protection dogs being bred, which are big and bulky and fierce. And so you have some separation of genetics. You started with the wolf back in the day. And as it came down through the line, 1800s, nobility got in there and started breeding. The peasants were actually using the dogs as rat dogs and to pull carts. So then you started to have lines that developed for those sorts of things. And so it was really interesting during that period to see how dogs split off to participate in relationships with us of various kinds that had to do with labor, right? And only something funny happened, right? In the laboring, what occurred was they shared space together, the human and the dog, obviously, and they started a depth of relationship. Now, in the beginning, it was relatively small, obviously. Look how they treated, other animals and women back then. Okay. I mean, the truth is that dogs were beloved by individuals, but certainly in the culture at large, they were simply utilities. And that's what occurred. And then we have it moving along through, like, you have your water rescue dogs that began, and you have your these dogs were big dogs, right? They were dogs that could run. They had lots of muscle. They had lots of force about them, and they had capacity to weather all sorts of temperatures, like in Newfoundlands and the Saint Bernard, right? The famous Saint Bernard in my generation, that would save people in the snow and avalanches and things. And so you have this whole idea of utility, that the dog is a utility, and it's a great thing, and everybody wants one because it's going to help you accomplish this, that, or the other. And let me just introduce you real quick to little Dasha. She came up. She's our ambassador this week. We have an ambassador every week. This is Dasha Riggs, and you can see her on the Royal Frenchel website. And Arturo Cileri, forgive me, he was busy with the technical stuff. He's my right paw, and we work together at Royal Frenchel and other projects. But anyway, so back to this evolution that was occurring. You have the splitting of genetics, you have tasks, you have the beginning of human relationship with dogs that goes more into an emotional attachment, and the dog as well as the human. And then you have the splitting off of these different types of services. And the services at first were, pulling carts is really different than, for instance, the development of a guide dog for the blind. When you have a guide dog for the blind, what are we saying? We're saying that this dog is with this person 24/7. And they have this depth of relationship that's really unspeakable. If you talk to people who are blind and have a service dog, they will tell you and share with you that this is a person who is their best friend. They are a family member. They are absolutely, the closest person in their lives. And so you have search and rescue. You have guide dogs for the blind. You have the beginning of farm dogs that go everywhere. In the 1950s, there were only 38%, I think it was, of people that had dogs, and it grew to 54% in the early 1900s, and 44%, excuse me, and that means that dogs were beginning to enter the lives of families, because farm dogs, of course, we can all remember Lassie and all the wonderful pictures that we've seen over the years, or if you had a farm, lived on a farm, visited a farm with dogs, you know how important they are. And you can see how those relationships began to deepen even more. The dog, was outside, started to come inside. Not only did it come inside during the day, but then it came inside at night. And not only did it come inside at night, it began to be in the same room as the people who owned the farm. And so, the dogs were seen as property, but they also entered the development of a relationship, again, of another level of depth. They still were large enough to be effective for the work they were doing. And then what happened was there was this enormous shift that occurred in the 21st century. Okay, we have dogs that we had this massive shift in terms of the cost of things. We had inflation, right? We had actually $123 billion was being spent in the dog industry. Our homes were smaller. Costs were higher for homes. Land amounts were less. People, you know, as we all saw over time, we saw the development of that tiny house, right? That came along after this long period of us sort of downsizing and finding out that downsizing worked really well for us. People were working 1 and 2 jobs, etc. And what you have is people that were shifting and bringing their dogs along with them, but wanting a smaller dog, wanting a dog that was more compact, wanting a dog that could get along with anyone so that they could take it everywhere. 20% of the people who were experienced this extreme loneliness. And so dogs started to fill that hole. Um, uh, Women, my God, I think it was last year I read a survey that 38% of women between the ages of 25 and 34 wanted dogs over children. That and it wasn't just the cost of 300,000 to raise a child versus 20,000 to raise a dog. It was that they really wanted the supportive relationship with the dog. They wanted to care for it. Were having the urges to care for and be close to and intimate with a good friend that they could have by their side 24/7. But they also didn't want to uh, uh, you know, get distracted from what they needed to do and produce in order to survive, right? So this dog was really important, but it's becoming smaller now, and it does not necessary that it goes out, and it's not viewed as a utility anymore. It's now viewed as a family member. It's now viewed as a child um, replacement, really. I mean, the city of Seattle has more children in it than dogs. Same with San Francisco. You have areas of the country where dogs have really surpassed the number of children in an area because of this shift in how dogs have evolved with us as human beings and how we've evolved with them. So we have this long, long relationship of this of all sorts of ways in which we've interacted, and we've actually developed our own genetics by this long history together. We've trained each other. The species have interacted to such a degree that we've hooked up intuitively to a point now where the breed that is coming out now with Royal Frenchel, for instance, Royal Frenchels is a very unique breed. Its evolution is really quite stunning because it's small. It interacts beautifully with other animals. It loves children. It enjoys travel enormously, and as a result of its small size, can travel anywhere. They're the smallest bulldogs in the world. They're highly, highly intuitive. So if somebody's sick, they make the best service dog in the world. Um, uh, and by happenstance, not that I planned it or had any kind of intellectual understanding that that's what I was doing, but I think over time I had picked up on what was coming, and it hurt me to see dogs that were large dogs and dogs that were so magnificent being placed at young ages, people thinking a puppy's so cute, so cute. And they get the dog, and 6 months later, it's 60 pounds. And they go, I can't do this while I'm working. It's just too much. And they put the dog into some sort of service to place. And it's sad. It just broke my heart, it really did. Um, and I saw this whole trend that was taking place because people would look me up to help them find a place for their dog. And so developing Royal Frenchels was really, really important to me, not only to create a dog that was healthier, lived longer, 14 to 18 years, Royals do, but also that could meet this whole, this loneliness factor, this factor of wanting to have a relationship of an intimate nature, um, uh, in our with us and really be supported in it. So I'm just going to get a little sip of water and offer it to Arturo as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so yeah, I wanted to share about that today because it's really important to understand. I've used seizure alert dogs, and the way they started that, they weren't actually identified until the 1970s. They were identified earlier, again, by certain individuals, but I've had seizure alert for, my gosh, myself personally, somewhere between 25 and 30 years. I can't remember now. And it changed my life. I was on medication, and I got off medication, and I hated the medication because it made me really, really cloudy. Like it was like I always had a fog in front of my head. And so with a service dog who was a seizure alert dog, I could stop the medication, carry meds with me, and get by beautifully. And of course, that created such gratitude and appreciation in me for my dog that my dogs and I formed this outrageous relationship. And it was really, really awesome. And Royal Frenchels, hands down, after all the years that I've lived with all sorts of dogs. Of course, I raised Frenchies for over 50 years, but I've always been involved with animals and other dogs of all the breeds. I love them so much. And I just it sets you free to have a life that you can't have otherwise. And there are people who travel a lot, and they take their Royal Frenchel with them, and now they're traveling for work is a ball. The dog is hardly noticed, or when it is, it's a morale booster in the companies they go to, and people love it. And their dog, goes in and out of places with them as their service dog. And it's really, really fun to see how their productivity level increased, their morale increased. The places always ask about the dog and want them to come back and bring their dog. Real estate agents always want, their customers want them to come by with the dog. It's really, really fun. So the world has shifted greatly culturally around dogs. And we are now, co-adventurers in life, dogs and humans. We aren't just purely, you know, in this relationship of utility and labor and a dog you keep in the garage or out in the back, or that catches rabbits on the farm. It's a relationship now of a much more profound spiritual nature for us. So anyway, I wanted to just start by sharing that. I'm going to get Samantha ready to join us. Samantha is a woman who has a wonderful life. I'm going to let her share more with you. She's a very spiritual woman. She works with people in the area of healing in various capacities. She does have a couple of Royal Frenchels, and she has some questions and things she wanted to bring forward today. So we said, come join us in the show. So I wanted to first just remind you that there's a 17% off on our Tail Wagging Love store on Amazon. The link is below, and it's this wonderful thermos that I just adore. It's got 2 bowls on the bottom, which is so great and easy to use. You can drink from it when your dogs do, and you can set them up for a snack, etc. And I say this to people all the time, because even as a breeder and a person who absolutely adores dogs, right? I have been out and I have gone past the mark where I knew my dog needed water and didn't have it. And when I got this, that ended. Yeah, I can take just the right amount of water with me out wherever I go, and it works beautifully. Also, I really love the fact that this big wide opening, and it's stainless steel, of course, which I wouldn't have plastic to keep my stuff in, for my dogs. But it's so easy to clean, and it's what you put it in the dishwasher, and the bowls are just hand wiped. Um, yeah, so I hope Samantha has gotten ready in the time that we're here. Maybe you can bring her up, Arturo. Sure. That would be really awesome. Sure. Now we're going to just point it at you then. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, good. So I understand from Arturo and our very, very brief moment on the phone that you had some questions or thoughts you wanted to hear some discussion about or share about. So I'd
Yeah.
love to invite you to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I've lots of questions, but I've been listening to the conversation, and one thing you said made me think about how our relationship with dogs is shifting from one of seeing them as tools of survival to seeing them as support for our thriving.
Absolutely.
And
Well, I think even that, I'm going to say, even that, Samantha, is a little off the mark for me. And I'll tell you why. I think that we're moving into a place that I certainly want to have a great impact in. And that is, when we say from tools to survival to supporters, what was the tag you just used?
I said support for our
Oh,
thriving.
supporters to help us thrive. I don't think it's about us. I think it's about both of us. It's about the dogs and us. And it's about an equality. And they're two different species, yes. And yes, we have this structure here in which we have taken over the environment. So they have to rely on us. They have no choice. If they were in the wild, they would not have to rely on us. But with us, we've generated this, we've co-created this world together. And I think it's really important to understand that they not only support us, but we support them. And we have an obligation to do that, that the dog and the human, we're equals. We're just two different species. We come from two different vantage points in the living of life. And sharing that has ended up prospering both of our lives, right? It's not just about being supportive of one, it's about the prospering of both of those lives today. It's very different. The evolution has really come about where that's what's happening. I mean, people are calling their dogs children. They're spending huge amounts of money on their dogs every year. I've forgotten what the amounts are, but it's I had it at one point. $123 billion is no little amount of money. And they're spending equal amounts of money on dogs as they would a young child. So anyway, I cut you off after inviting you here and having you there for just 2 seconds, but I really want to always be sensitive to, I was working with a web guy, and the web guy wanted to was talking about ownership, this ownership that with the dogs. And I said, we never use that term here. We don't own our dogs. They're not owned by us. They are cohabitants with us, co-inhabitants with us. They live with us, and they are family, and they are friends. So you'll never see on a Royal Frenchel website ownership. You won't see that anywhere with tail wagging love. We don't own anything living like that. So anyway, that was just a perspective I wanted to share.
No, you're definitely speaking my language, and I share that perspective with you for sure. But what I heard you say was, we're shifting from this transactional connection with our dogs to a much more relational connection with our dogs, and starting to look beyond their usefulness to their true worthiness. And I think that's a really different. Um, I think it's a different perspective, not for myself personally, but I hope it's a perspective that, in starting to have a conversation about it, that more people can adopt.
I do too. And I'll tell you, the amount of healing that dogs have blessed human beings with is remarkable. And I'm really fortunate because I've been so much a part of that in my life. I have, I had this horrendous brain disease when I was a child and was affected heavily. I could walk, but I couldn't walk. I didn't have the ability to navigate the world physically. My neurological system was off. So I would walk into a wall instead of go through the doorway. So I had to have what were hired as walkers, people that walked with me to help me navigate doorways, stairwells, all sorts of things like that. And of course, lo and behold, it ended up becoming a dog. And I've had, 30 major surgeries in my life and 14 different diseases because I was born without antibodies when I was young, and they didn't develop till I was 8 years old. So they were less than normal. And I got everything under the sun. And so while I was home ill or in the hospital ill, I always had a dog with me. And if I didn't have those dogs, I'm telling you, I don't know really what I would have become, because they allowed me to stay in touch with, relating. They allowed me to feel participating with a warm, loving body that cared about me when others had to work and could not give me that time. Um, and they save our lives all the time. I have a customer who recently had a stroke outside her apartment complex, but she had walked out the back of the complex in order to take a shortcut between buildings, and she dropped there, and her Royal Frenchel um, uh, was with her and got herself unhooked from her hand and the leash and ran down to town a few blocks away where the woman went for coffee every morning and started barking and barking and barking at the person who owned the coffee shop. And they had never seen her do that. So they said, wait, something must have happened. And where is her mom, Marion? Where is she? So they followed the dog back. And sure enough, they found her there between the buildings and ended up saving her life. She had had a stroke and couldn't move. And because of the timeliness of it all, she was able to get the medication she needed. There's a certain time period when you can get medication and it saves you from certain results in a stroke. They got her all the meds she needed and etc. So the reason why I share that is that, these are profound moments in our lives. They truly are. And that woman's relationship to that dog, um, though there are some heartbreaking things that happened later in her family around that dog, etc. But that Marion's relationship with that dog, you couldn't possibly get in between them. I mean, and the dog was just so gentle-hearted and so loving, and you know, it was wonderful, wonderful. Yeah,
What a great story, and I know you
yeah,
have tons of other stories like that, I'm sure.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your hope is here this morning. What thoughts are you
So,
wanting to
I
share?
have I have many questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to have me come back and ask and finish them up. Um,
Love to.
but
If
but,
you can shut me up long enough. I seem to be Miss Talky here this morning, but that's okay.
um, I first wanted to learn a little more about, Royal Frenchel history before we delve more into, or delve deeper into the evolution of
Sure.
this amazing breed that you've created. And you've already shared that you have been a breeder for over 50 years. But I really wanted to start by finding out more, which you touched on a little bit about your journey, where your love for animals comes from, and um, why did you start to focus more on dogs, or when did that start to happen?
Um, I was born highly intuitive. So I had a type of seeing that I thought everybody had when I was really young. And I was very fortunate to have an incredibly loving mother. And as a matter of fact, her nickname was Barbara Angel for years because she was like an angel. She was just the most loving, amazing human being. And so I felt very comfortable sharing with her anything I ever saw, etc. So I heard and saw things that were from, spiritual places around people. Sometimes when I was, 3, 4 years old, I would see a person over their shoulder, and it would be someone who had passed, and they would be talking to me and sharing with me about this person. And so as a child, I would blurt things out, and I was so grateful as I got older and found out how the world was in terms of 70 years ago. That was very distressing to a lot of people.
I was gonna say
Today it
you're lucky
isn't.
your mom was so encouraging in that respect.
Very, very, very fortunate, I tell you, really and truly, I can't say enough about that. And so I was a seer very young. And then I had this brain disease. And when I had the brain disease, I lost the ability to utilize my intellectual brain in certain ways. So I was very smart, but I couldn't navigate the world with anything but my intuition. So I could sense who was calling, and then I could pick up the phone. But if the phone just rang, um, I might struggle to find the phone.
Mm,
But if I sensed it coming, then I would just immediately reach for it, and I had no difficulty. So what happened was naturally, I naturally employed my intuitive abilities on a daily basis to survive. And and that, really developed me more greatly, like quite a bit more.
well,
I
it's so
hear
interesting in
I
the
hear dogs inside, I hear them, I talk to them, I can see them, I can see through them in my yards, etc. This is a little much. I've never shared this publicly before.
I love it.
And yeah, well, that's great. And so so they became so dear to me because with them, it's a very natural process. And as I got older, at 9 years old, was when I realized that the rest of the world wasn't like that. And my mother started to help me navigate how the world was and how I was. And that was really tough because um, I didn't know how to operate any other way. I did not know how to not see,
Mm,
and I didn't have control over it when I was young. And so dogs and animals I had monkeys, raccoons, I had, back in my day, there weren't the regulations there are today. So I was surrounded by a lot of animals that I adored. And I had an ability with them that was so relaxing to me. It was like being home.
mhm,
And I didn't have to be concerned about saying something wrong or suddenly knowing something about a person and feeling sad for them. If I saw that, someone was going to die soon or something, I had to learn, when do you share, when do you not share? What is my responsibility in everything? There were a lot of things I went through in that process, and dogs were my right arm. They were my aid. They were my beloved, beloved friends, and along with the beings that I could see and talk to.
well, it's really fascinating in the context of this conversation because we're talking about equality of two different species, and we're talking about intelligence, and just the idea that you had this brain injury or
Yeah,
disorder, um, it almost highlighted one different intelligence that you already had.
right.
And we're kind of talking about the same things with our dogs, that maybe their
Mm.
intelligence is different, but we don't have to put it in the context of lesser or greater.
Right.
It's just
Right
different.
on. Yep. Yep. And really important. And one of the things that I think that's happened in this evolution of dogs and humans is that dogs have filled a hole in our society. They're not judgmental. Um, they are staunch, beloved friends. You can count on them to be reliable no matter what, unless they're ill or something. Um, they are, really simple to care for, and are so grateful, so many more times grateful for it.
Mhm.
Um, when you experience that, and where do you have that in our society with people? So unfortunately, we have not yet pulled that back into our ways as a society, with the outgrowth of social media and all of this negativity and fighting, and it's a time of evolution, and it's like wine. There's a time in the making of wine where it's absolutely horrible tasting, right? We're in kind of a horrible period of history, bridging on the birth of another time which will be more beautiful and wonderful. And dogs are helping us do that bridge. I really believe that. They really help us as another expression of the creator who is here with us in all things. Um, they are playing the role that we have evolved together, so that we could each have easier lives, more profoundly prosperous lives internally,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Not prosperous money,
Yeah, they're a real
but
power of
in
example of what we need a lot of help in learning that just comes natural to them. The way that they love, the way that they don't judge, the way that they would go up to anybody and just be kind.
yeah,
Yeah, so we can learn a lot from them for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, okay, so my next question is um, when or how did you first become interested in breeding dogs? And a little bit more about who taught you about it and how did you learn to do it? Um, and when you really decided it's what you wanted to do.
Well, I don't remember a time when I wasn't gonna do it. So
Yeah?
that's how much a part of my life dogs were. I don't even remember, I mean, the first litter was so young I probably couldn't talk. My
Oh,
mother saw
that's so
my
cool.
mother saw the love I had for dogs, and she was really kind, like I said, and so, I had boxers when I was really young,
I love
and we
box.
and so we our my first dog uh, um oh my God, it just totally went out of my head. This happens with my brain difference. But anyway, um, uh, uh, she was just amazing. And so I raised boxers for a good while, along with Frenchies. Um, uh, and what was the other part of the question?
Um, how you just who taught you? But it sounds like you taught yourself.
Well, I did in part, but not really. Back then, you were mentored. And in order for you to become a breeder, you needed to mentor with somebody. And
Yeah.
so I did that for about 5 to 7 years. I also worked in a vet's office. I didn't work, I was a volunteer because I was raising my dogs and they didn't have a lot of help. So when my dogs would give birth, I would go in and be the person in surgery with them. So I became really good at C-sections with my vet.
How old
Um,
were you at that time? Do you remember?
Oh God, my early teens, very early. I was in a vet's office by 12 years old. Yeah,
I had
10,
a I
11,
had a
11,
similar
12 years old.
experience of, when I was in, grade school, so I was probably around 11 or 12 years old, um, I would go and this was before it was more widely known that, vets could make house calls. I worked with a vet who did veterinary house calls, and when my friends would be out on the weekends playing outside and doing whatever they did, I would be going on house calls with this vet and watching surgeries and going to people's houses, and I loved it. So
Yeah.
that's I
Oh,
get
how
that.
fun.
Yeah.
That's fun to know about you. That's really awesome. Yeah, well, that's about what it was like. Back then there weren't all these regulations. It's sad to me that I can't go in the operating room with my girls today. It really
Mhm.
is, because I'm really useful and I'm really well trained. But anyway, I'm not allowed to. You have to have all the certifications today and everything. And overall, I suppose it's benefits somebody. But Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened, and then as I continued, I was distressed to see what happened in America with breeds, because European breeds were healthier often than American breeds. It was like a breed would come here, and over time we would just sort of, the longevity would reduce, and there would be issues about it. They'd get hyper personalities, and people bred a lot for looks and not really a whole creature, and people don't live with looks, okay? Looks
Yeah.
don't last long, let's face it. They live with the heart and soul and personality of this creature. And so breeding for personality and health became absolutely important to me, because if a dog has a great personality and they're treated well when they're young, people don't get rid of them, right? So the rate of my dogs getting transferred to someone else, or you know, um, given away at some point, is very, very, very low for Royal Frenchels.
Mm.
People who get our dogs keep them. As a matter of fact,
And they keep
65%
coming
of the
back.
yeah, 65% of our people that got our dogs, they come back for another one.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Myself included.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Do you have any of your little ones with you by any
I do.
chance?
So Softy's been sitting in my lap this whole time. Yeah, right?
Aw.
Just
Hi,
Softy.
Softy.
She's my
Hi, Softy.
beautiful girl.
Aw,
And then
so
her
fun.
her brother, not by blood. They
Blood.
don't have this,
Yeah.
they have different moms and dads, but this is Cozy Bear.
Oh, God, he's beautiful, isn't he? He
He's
looks just
gorgeous.
like he looks just like Oscar.
He
Yeah.
he's
Oh.
he's gorgeous, and he's the most humble, tender-hearted little guy. He's just
Aw.
incredible, but they both are.
And it's so lovely to have them where they can travel around with you, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
I love that about mine.
and I work from home. I mean, we're literally always together, and it's not like I'm doing anything exciting. They just wanna be with me, and it's amazing. I love it.
Yep.
Um, okay, so my next question is, who or what would you say are the top 3 most important influences to the way that you approach dogs and breeding?
Hands down, my mother.
Your mother. I
My
love
mother
hearing
was
about her today. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, she was just like I said, a remarkable person. It didn't matter if it was a human, a dog, a bird, it didn't matter. She treated everything with incredible respect and gentle kindness. She always was thinking of what their needs were and how they would like to be approached, rather than uh, you know, what she needed from them or wanted from them. And she always had time. It was like we could be in the biggest hurry, and my mother always had time.
Mm,
And I would have to say that was the most profound touch in my life, was my mother. And I'm very grateful, and I've always tried to be like her, and I wasn't like her at all. I was this, loud mouth, not loud mouth, but you know, this outgoing, in some parts I'm outgoing. I'm really quite introverted, to be honest with you, but I'm pretty forceful with the things that I believe in strongly, and I care about that greatly. And my mother was more genteel than that, and
mm.
so yeah,
More of a bulldog.
I'm more of a bulldog, as Arturo reminded me. Yeah,
She's like a collie or something.
I
I don't
definitely
know.
am. Yeah, yeah, very
But
true.
my
Very.
my first dog was a bulldog, and they can certainly come from a place of kindness as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Any other influences come to mind besides your mom?
No, I mean, when you're talking about like what really inspired Royal Frenchel and the methods that I use that are, the proprietary methods of Royal Frenchel, the love bucket training and the things that I do, um, uh, my mother, really, it all flows from my mother. I mean, I can say I see this, that, or the other, but the truth is, my mother's hand was the most uh profoundly affected my
Mm,
life. And I didn't realize it when I was young. As usual, we all have that story. We get older and we realize the profound reaches our parents went through in order to give us our lives that we had and to share in them. And but she was, just a remarkable human being, truly and absolutely, truly. We had to laugh when we were growing up because men fell in love with my mother anywhere we went. Like literally, they would fall in love with her. And we would laugh so hard. My poor mother, she was trying to be cordial to somebody who was, going after her. And my brother and I would just be hysterical laughing at the situation because it would be so obvious. And but that was because of who she was. She was extremely charismatic, but extreme also didn't didn't want it, didn't call it forward, didn't date, didn't do those things after my father passed. So, it was pretty funny
But it
growing up. But
sounds like, now that I'm thinking about our conversation, it also sounds like, the other non-person influences were your gifts as an intuitive and a seer, and also your challenges with being, coping with being ill.
right. Oh, absolutely. I would say that uh, you know, Mr. White, my dog Mr. White had an incredibly profound effect on my life.
Mm.
Eddie, his best friend that came before him, same. And I could go back, there was a really Robin was a dog of mine that I absolutely
I
adored.
guess
And
that
there
only
were,
makes sense, right? That the dogs
yeah.
themselves would be such an influence. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. And they had really specific skills. Eddie taught me how to be how Eddie walked through the kennel, and when he walked through the kennel would part. Like they didn't try to fight him, they didn't try to do anything. He didn't do anything to make anybody do anything. He just held himself in such a way that everyone acknowledged him as the head of the kennel. He walked through the kennel dogs would part. He could do anything, anywhere, at any time. And I used to marvel at that presence and always work to emulate how he lived his life. Because if I could move that way with human beings, that would be just so dear to me to hit such a resonance and a harmony between people and what we're up to, that would just be such a wonderful place. So I often actually did exercises around that. And Mr. White, I did, Mr. White was incredibly patient. That dog, he could be suffering so badly and he would be patient.
Mm.
And his patience, we did a quick reel recently, about a week ago. I saw a reel go out in our social media of Mr. White where he was on the top of a step, and there was this little Italian greyhound, you know lighting all over him like a butterfly, but bothering him, right? And Mr. White just sat there and sat there, and then finally he just chose to move. And I thought, why argue? Why struggle?
Right.
Don't do it. Just stay until you know it's not going to be, or it is going to be, and move on.
Yeah.
Keep posturing yourself in positions in life that allow you to continue your purpose. You don't have to struggle over it. You can
Yeah.
move. And so each dog had the enormity of a skill in a particular area. I don't know, Turo, you can join us here on this one. What do you think for you? You have
Um,
experiences of a certain kind
oh yeah.
in
Well,
terms of your dogs.
yeah. I mean, my dog teaches me. I'm one of my biggest personal challenges is to slow down, be present to what people are saying, to really connect to each moment. And my dog, Whimsy, is constant. I say she's the best part of me and the slowest part of me.
It slows you
Because
down.
she's always behind me, she's always there. And like I think I've said on a video before that, we leave when I leave this room, we have our laundry area, and she likes to go check it out. It's like I call it reading the papers. She always has to do it, and I always have to stop. And I could be in a rush, I gotta stop. I'm like learn from Barbara Angel, right? You gotta have time for it. So I take the time, and she teaches me to just, you know God is, you know, I'll say God, but you know, like it's all good, man. It's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. Just be here and everything's
Yeah.
gonna work out. And that's her message to me all the time. Just be here and everything's gonna work out. And anything she's part of, I'm just so happy. So yeah, I mean, I I mean the other comment I wanted to make that I was inspired by in this conversation was the fact that you know, oftentimes I've taught science, I've taught chemistry and environmental science and things like that, and one of the things I always tell the students is that, you know, no matter what, there's always more. You know, there's
Yeah.
always more, and what you're learning now is basically archaic, you know, because there's so much more thought beyond this, and that by the time it gets into books and into your classrooms, it's already changed, right?
Right.
And there are always leaders of thought and leaders of experience that create new things that at first look kind of like, what is that? It's a little puzzling, right? And I believe that you know, what she's talking about, this relationship with dogs, this evolution of dogs and their relationship with humans is an experience. And I believe that experience is what our customers rave about. And if you look at the videos of you're one of them yourself, but other people, they that's why there's no language for it. That's why, because it is new. It is something that is evolving in our relationship with these dogs, and they are the leaders of it. And I believe, you know, Anahata as boldly says, you know, these dogs are an evolution. You know, it's not just it is the dog is changing also. And so I'm scientifically trained and I've studied genetics. And one of the one of the limitations of the majority of people's understandings of genetics is that they're fixed. And it's, you know, over the last 5 years, there's been so much education about how that's not true. There's epigenetics, where the environment actually instructs your genetics, the environment you're in. And as is typical, science comes after the experience to explain and document and track and say this is true. And it already is true that epigenetics are a factor in evolution. So if you consider the reality of the relationship with our dogs, of course they're evolving to meet our needs and us to evolve to meet their needs, that it's a symbiotic evolution. So I just wanted to add that as a scientific little you know,
That's lovely.
addition, because it's not out there at all. It
Mhm.
is part of the beauty of being alive with another species and sharing our journey together. And it's emotional, really. It's truly emotional.
And it's, you know, it's intriguing. Thank you so much, Arturo.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
intriguing.
Yeah.
It's intriguing too because uh the environment of Royal Frenchels is very unique because I'm really strong about treating the dogs in a very specific way. Like we have a ritual of naming the puppies because I believe that witnessing an individual. See, when your breeders typically have litters, right? And the litter goes out and you want to sell the litter or whatever. And for us, it's an individual that's been born to us. And our job is to witness it. We have a creed here that says order is hygiene, is happiness, is health. Seeing friends and shining personalities to um, uh, celebrations and blessed. What's the end of it? Help me.
Blessed happiness for all. Hear the call.
Yeah, hear the call. So
It's like the kennel prayer.
it is, and we say it before every meeting, every time we come together, we all say it together. But what it's actually saying is you have to have order and hygiene first, always.
Right.
That comes first and it must be there. You cannot not have it because it is saying when you have order and hygiene in the raising of an animal or a child or anything, it's saying, I make space for you. You're important and I make space for you. You are part of the music of my life. You are part of the activities of my life. You are part of the engine. The whole ship has you in it, and you are part of that. And so you're making that energetic statement with your animals. And secondly, when it's making friends, when it says, you know, shining personalities to celebrations end, it's talking about seeing that individual. And the task with kennel staff is always see that individual. They are not cans of soup. You cannot take them from here to there and put them somewhere, you know, in and out of crates or whatever, outside, let them run, come bring them back, and treat them like they're cans of soup, moving them around in a cabinet. You must acknowledge them as an individual. So they are given a naming that's very deep and sincere from me. And then they are treated as an individual, and our job is to shine that personality that's so unique on that dog out. And I was just meeting with a woman this morning who was saying to me, oh my God, the time has flown here. I can't keep going on here. But in any event, I was talking to a woman this morning on the phone who wants to get a pup, and she was saying, I met a Royal Frenchel, and her brother got one, and they got Savannah, who's been with us. She's been our little ambassador,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we have Dasha Riggs now. Maybe you can grab her real quick. And Dasha is now our ambassador, and she's just a doll. But she was saying, is this odd, because we're not having to really do any training with this dog? It's you know, she came in and it's like she slept the whole first night. You know, it took us twice to get her to go to the bathroom outside, and now that's happening. Did you want to say
her family, actually, Savannah's family says, she's like, it's like she came out of the box, ready to go.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they said.
I have
oh my God, that was so funny.
I have a story to share on that note. But I also just want to highlight that what you're saying about the intention behind this prayer and the message behind this prayer, you touched on it, Arturo, that you're giving them room to not only be individuals, but how beautiful that you're giving them room to be leaders, you know, to lead us. I love that idea. But just a quick story. I had traveled with Softie when she was an only child, and she did great. She came to France with my husband and I, and so she flew all the way to France. We drove all around France. She loved being in the car with us. She loved being everywhere with us. But then a shorter flight, for the first time, I wanted to bring both dogs with me to visit my family in Chicago. So, you know, it was a 2-hour flight, but I was so nervous because I had never gone to the airport with 2 dogs, just me. I was outnumbered. And I had checked a bag and brought 2 carriers, one for each of them, just in case I had to carry them. Instead, I ended up, oh, look at that. Instead, I ended up carrying the carriers. They walked into the airport, through security, to our gate. They just sat there with me. They interacted with anybody who was willing to come up, which were a bunch of people who wanted to see them. And then when I got my seat, I was so busy kind of concerned about them that I had to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the flight. And I thought, oh, darn it, I should have taken care of this before I got onto the flight. So I just put them on my seat. They were both just sitting right there on my seat. And I said, stay there. I'll be right back. And so I got up and went to the bathroom, and I didn't even look behind me because I didn't want them to jump off and follow me. And I just came back, and they were sitting in the same spot. And the woman next to me said, wow, these dogs are so well behaved. How did you train them to do that? And I just sort of, well, they're just, you know, that's just how they are.
Oh my God, that's so
meanwhile,
fun.
I couldn't take one bit of credit for it at all.
Samantha, it's the same thing. I will oftentimes deliver some dogs, you know, over to Florida or something. I get the same thing every time. I literally will take a dog who has never had any formal training, put a harness on him, walk to the airport. No issue at all. They learn on the spot, and people actually compliment, wow, that dog's amazingly trained. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm training them right now. That's first time ever.
Yeah.
So it's so true. So true.
But they
I mean,
are
there
trained.
was a part of me that wanted to take all the credit, but I knew I couldn't. It was like, nope.
Well, you can, because you were smart enough to get the dog. And the truth is
That
they
was
were
smart on my
trained.
part.
They were trained in terms of socially and relationship.
Yes.
Right.
And so they fall into and flow in relationship very easily and very well. And that's true. But you're the one, it's your rhythms and things that they mimic and participate with. So that's it. This is Chester, by the way. This is
He
one
is
of our studs who I just adore. He's the
he
biggest
is a
love.
little
He
stud.
loves to
He's
burrow his head like this. He'll do this in my side and snuggle in here. Anyway, we have spent an hour and a minute, and I'm over time. And God, Samantha, how wonderful it's been to have you here today.
I'm so
I
glad
really,
we
you've
got to do
gotten
this.
things out of me nobody's ever asked, and that's really intriguing and fun for me. And
Well, I
I want to
do have
thank
more
everyone.
questions, so I would love to come back.
We will bring you back.
Let's
That's for
bring her
sure. I
back.
want to let everybody know that we're going to be doing one, maybe two shows a week. Right now, we're going to do one. I'm recovering from my knee replacement. And by the way, I got shingles on the leg at the same time, which has not been fun and is very painful. So I'm looking forward to that passing at some point. But in any event, we're going to be doing once a week, Wednesdays like this, 12 o'clock. And don't forget that you've got 17% off on your water bottle and food bottle, because you get both water and food in here, and you can drink too with your dog. So don't forget that. And then also, I want to tell you, I want to show you really, really quickly, just so quickly, a project that we've started. I'm going to let Arturo do it and bring it up for
Just
me.
keep talking.
Hey, listen, Samantha, you may disappear off the screen, and
Yeah, we're gonna have to say that.
much love to you, sweetheart.
Such,
Thank you so
such a
Samantha,
much.
blessing
thank
to
you.
talk to
And
you
we will
today.
most definitely bring you back. This is
All right,
really
to be
fun.
continued.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Take care, love.
All right.
Okay, I want to just show you briefly. I'm creating an AI based on Mr. White's great wisdom and love. And his name is Mr. White, and he is going to serve people who have dogs. And I can't go into it at length, but I wanted to just show you really quickly and briefly, if we can find it. We may not be able to, and we're late. So looks like Arturo's having difficulty finding it. So we'll see. Not sure where he is.
One moment. Jeez. Dang it. Oh, this is a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and leave. You bring me back on
Yeah,
screen.
there you
We'll show you the next time.
Yeah.
Listen, love you all. Wish you all the best. I hope you consider some of the different perspectives that I shared today, and that Samantha shared and Arturo shared today about your relationships with your dogs. And yeah, we send you much love to you and